Welcome to Supply Chain Horizons, a video podcast series that looks at crucial issues facing global supply chain teams. This video podcast is sponsored by Logility, a leading provider of supply chain solutions used by more than 1,250 companies in more than 70 countries around the world. You can access this podcast and many others by visiting www.logility.com. So, let's get started. I'm Chris Russell, an executive with Logility, and for over 20 years, probably more, have worked with talented supply chain professionals in many industries around the world, and I would like to share with you some interesting and thoughtful conversations that I've had with them. Segmentation is a hot topic in supply chain right now. Industry analysts cite segmentation as one of the requirements of a demand-driven supply chain. As organizations and supply chains mature, segmentation becomes more and more of a supply chain enabler. When you can construct specific policies of inventory and supply for a specific segment of the market, that fine-tuning uncovers greater opportunities in service delivery and cost reduction. I recently connected with industry expert Bob Cowdrick to chat about how supply chain systems address these challenges. Bob shed some light on the nuances of using segmentation to drive your supply chain.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks, Chris.
Well, that's good. I'll tell you a story. I was at the Gartner conference last week, where they have all the high-powered executives in the supply chain industry, and one of the big topics was supply chain segmentation. And we've been doing this at Logility for years, and it all starts at the front end with the demand segmentation and the way you set up your demand-driven network to have that segmentation on the front end, and then that flows through the whole replenishment process, the inventory process, the supply process, and it appeared to me that, hey, this is something we already do. So I was wondering if you could walk us through what we're talking about when we talk about demand segmentation.
Absolutely. So demand segmentation can be done many different ways, but in Logility, we have an ABC analysis that's commonly used to support demand segmentation. And the classical definition of an ABC analysis is where you categorize inventory, and typically people for years have been doing that for cycle counting purposes. But more importantly, more on the demand and supply planning side, it's used for a couple key features. One, demand segmentation, ranking, and SKU ranking, SKU rationalization, but also the ability to take the results of the segmentation and apply it more in terms of the inventory and the supply side to set inventory policies and to set safety stock policies. So in our demand optimization applications as part of Logility's demand planning application, we support the ABC analysis, and it's just not single echelon, but it's a multi-echelon ABC analysis because it allows you to rank and segment your business based on history. What was the biggest sellers last year? They will be my A items. Maybe I want to segment based on future business. What will be the biggest sellers next year so I can rank it based on basis of the business going forward? Commonly also people look at in terms of segmentation based on error, forecast error. Which were the ones with the worst forecast error? Which ones were the best forecast error? So we support in Logility 6 different segmentation classes for the use of these ABCs, and they can always be brought in from your ERP system, but Logility's ABC analysis allows you to rank those items. And that classification, Chris, is somewhat more like a Pareto analysis where you can say my A's represent 80% of my forecast errors, or my B's or my C's represent 10%, 5%. And so you can run the ABC analysis and determine your cutoffs or your ranking percentages for each type of analysis based on history, business, forecast error, etc. So that's an important part, to be able to do it with multiple classifications and multiple analysis percentages.
One of the things they talk a lot about when they talk about segmentation is, which customers are profitable, right? Where am I making money versus not making money? Because my supply chain the way I manage that in my supply chain might be different, or I might find opportunities there.
That's very true, and that's where the weighting factors come in. So as part of Logility, we support different weighting factors, so we can analyze our forecast. They are based on history or forecast going forward, the biggest sellers versus the smallest sellers from a customer-level perspective. But then we can also weight it from a different units of measure, so we can use units or price or costs or margin or future price, future cost margin, etc. So I can analyze my profitability of my customers. Yes, it may be a customer that buys very little product from us. They may be a C-type customer, but they're very profitable. Vice versa, they may be a high-volume customer, but we're not making any money off that customer. It also kind of extends a little bit that supports SKU rationalization. So of my A, B, C items, which items should I even be selling to in the future? Should I consider an item that's a sellable item to that particular customer or customer group? So what sometimes users set up what's typically called a 9-box, where they analyze volume against margin. So it may be an AA item from a margin and volume standpoint, but if it's a CC item, low volume, low margin, should I even be considering selling it and offering it as part of my product portfolio?
I've seen people use that box parameter, like you're saying, to determine how they're going to manage those items. So in some cases, they may stock them closer to the customer to drive customer service. In other cases, they may pull it back and have it as essentially a buy-to-order or a make-to-order part.
Correct. So the ABC analysis, the results of running the ABC analysis can be useful for setting inventory policies. And it really comes into two areas, one setting safety stock and one setting order policies. So if you run an ABC analysis and you rank your items based on forecast error, the ones that had the highest forecast error, you may want to set a little higher safety stock, a little higher level of service for that particular item, versus another item could be a C item from forecast error perspective, very stable, very predictable. Thus, I may want to set a different safety stock policy for that type of item, maybe a little bit lower service level or lower safety stock because it's very predictable.
Right. And in this way, really the advantage is you get visibility to the different types or the different segments of your business and how they drive your supply chain. And then you can set policy, especially if you're trying to mature as a company and understand your supply chain. You can set policy applicable to where it's needed as opposed to just the same policy for everybody and everything.
We provide you that flexibility, having that multiple echelons, multiple categorizations of those ABC analysis rules to set those policies and do a finer tuning job with inventory optimization.
So what types of customers have you seen this applicable to?
It's very applicable to not only make to order, but also make to stock customers. So in the classical distributor, manufacturing, distribution kind of environment where you're setting policies because you're distributing product, you're buying products maybe from overseas, you're setting those policies, and for safety stock and order quantity policies, and from a distribution standpoint, a make to stock kind of environment, very classical. But you also think about it, it's very helpful in a make to order environment. You know, make to order type customers are doing maybe furniture or chairs or those type of products where they're not necessarily setting their policies at the finished good level, but at the component level. So arms and legs and backs of chairs, you want to have the right level of inventory and the right level of service safety stock levels to be able to support a order that comes in for a unique configuration of a chair, as an example. People typically focus on demand planning and inventory optimization and supply optimization, but if they truly examine the use of the segmentation capability in Logility's demand optimization to be able to run the ABC analysis based on those multi-echelon ABC codes, they'll find the great value that it offers in terms of supporting more of the inventory policies and the supply planning features.
All right, great. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to me this morning.
Absolutely welcome. Thanks again.
So what are the top 3 things we should take away from this discussion on segmentation? First is to understand that segmentation strategies start with demand segmentation. You need to master the segmentation of the front end to enable a demand-driven supply chain. Second is that this segmentation drives down the chain to create segment-specific inventory stocking policies, replenishment policies, and supply strategies. And finally, in this way, segmentation becomes a multi-echelon driver over the supply chain, enabling fulfillment improvements at the S&OP level that would not otherwise be possible. Supply Chain Horizons is sponsored by Logility. We also invite you to connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Supply Chain Horizons.